pinaka-importante gid ang pag-gather of facts. Some moral dilemmas can be resolved just by clarifying facts of the case in question. But in more complex cases, gathering the facts in the indispensable first step before any ethical analysis and reflection of the case. So we should not jump in a conclusion, no? Gani, when we are going to put basis on science, naging importante na know what the problem is. So how can we be able to know about the problem? How can we be able to know about the case if we do not spend time, or we do not spend time to throw some questions, to actually question for what is the origin, or what rooted to that particular nga hitabo. So diya, kaning first step, dili kita pwede nga mo jump to the second step, third, fourth, or else sa later nga mga steps without using this one. We have to follow also. We have to start from questioning before we can proceed with the next nga steps. Okay, we have this. Number 2, the ethical issues. Second step is determining the ethical issues. The moral issues should be correctly stated in terms of competing interest. Now, it is this conflict interest that practically make for a moral dilemma. So the issues must be presented in a P versus Q format to reflect the interests that are colliding in a specific moral dilemma. For instance, many ethical decisions, especially at the end of a patient's life, can be stated in terms of patient's autonomy, or someone's right to make his or her decision about medical care, versus the sanctity of life, the duty to preserve life. So what is being stated here is just an example, no? So since we talk about ethical issues, there are some ways that may actually questions, no? Mabuti gitawag siya ethical issues that would actually at some point in our life we can actually encounter nga mga situations wherein sometimes it would question how ethical it is, no? How it is actually enlined, or gitawag na to siya nga nagpabilin siya nga masundanon, manunuton aning what is ethical to means of its actions. Like for example, maingon ang atong example is surrogate motherhood. Now, kaning surrogate motherhood class, it is the way that a parent could actually bear a child, no, coming from the the genes from the other person. So like for example, ang usa ka lalaki, ang usa ka couple, they cannot be able to bear a child. It's because ang lalaki baog. So karon nanay bag-o, with the use of the technology, na pwede na makaanak ang usa ka babae, ang couple pwede na makaanak. Katong mga dili makaanak nga couple, especially if ang ilang partner na problem, pwede jud kaayo nga makaanak siya by means of getting another person's sperm niya i-inject dito sa iyang sa iyang sabakan para nga mabuntis ang babae. Now, when we are going to think of it, dili non coming sa lalaki, no, dili coming sa lalaki ang dugo, no, pero ang nag-carry sa baby is ang iyang asawa, which is by legality, by means of legality, giaprobahan man sa other country, no, giaprobahan man na, especially sa mga western countries, nag-perform sila ngun ana. So ilan na nag-approve, no? Also to give way or to give hope sa mga married couple nga naay problem ang ilang partner, or else pwede pod ang bana, ang lalaki, no? Ang lalaki dili baog pero ang babae baog. So how can they be able to resolve that kind of issue? Pwede nga ang lalaki, ang duga sa lalaki inject sa another woman, which is dili kato yang asawa, inject dito, and they have made an agreement that once na maanak ang bata, of course they will be paying money, and at the same time also they will also be paying sa ilang bayaran na babae, and they will be the one to raise the child. So yun ana, no? Now, usahay, when we are going to put basis in making judgment, we have to set to it, or not just judgment, but when we are going to look for morality or a particular actions, we should not judge directly. But instead, of course, we have to examine if that particular act that is being done, makonsider ba nato siyang na siya gitawag ethical issues. Like for example, mo to no, surrogate motherhood. Ato siyang i-relate sa kang Lawrence Kohlberg nga problem. Kung may problem ni Lawrence Kohlberg by circumstances, no, nga si Lawrence Kohlberg nahitabo lang gyud nga pobre siya, and he do not have enough money to pay para sa tambal nga mo to nga iyang gihunahuna if iyang kawaton ang tambal makaluwas siya sa life siyang asawa. If di niya kawaton ang tambal, of course, he will not be judged by people, he will not be put in prison, he will not suffer, but of course, he will lose also the opportunity to extend the life of of his wife. So muna nga natungan si ato, no, og mangawat sa siya, mapriso gid siya, no. So muna nga in relation to that, no, kung mo make tag judgment panitan og gikawat dito ni Lawrence Kohlberg, atong tanawon ang degree, no, how does that particular act violates by means of kaning gitawag natong ethics. Okay, the highest standard of morality. When we are going to examine ethics sa gibuhat ni Lawrence Kohlberg kuya atong gikawat, sigurado ko dili kita maka-judge nga bati ang iyang gibuhat, because of course when you are going to ask, even if another person, no, even if in another person you're going to ask about ana, surely majority would say they rather get the medicine, diba? They rather steal the medicine and suffer rather than you'll be running with your conscience because namatay ang imong kuan, you did not do something, especially if that particular person is very important to you. So mo na, no, dili lang tayo nga basta-basta lang ta nga mo hatag tag judgment. Another, kaning Muslim, no, like for example mingon nga si Ronaldo ba yang asawa upat, no, maana dem nga chismosa dito ka bitaw na niya og kitog bawan ana, no. Unya ni judge na mo sa tao, wala ninyo gi-examine kung kinsa na si Ronaldo. What if kung kana si Ronaldo di ay di siya Roman Catholic, ang iyang naminyo siya kaupat, but the question is he is not a Roman Catholic, meaning to say that kind of deity wherein he follows as the basis of his day-to-day living is quite different with the kind of belief nga gi-exercise sa mga Muslim. What if kung kana si Ronaldo Muslim din na siya? So of course it is not reasonable to judge because in accordance sa ilaha nga pagtuo kuan man na gidawat man na, wala man na siya di man na violation sa ilang pagtuo, that is giukihan man na siya, that is actually being approved, no. So mo na nga when we make judgment, of course aside from the fact that we will be we are going to consider the culture or the race ana, no, we have to consider also if that particular act of the person is matawag na to og morally injuring, no, nakakuan siya that particular act is very injurious by means of ang moralidad sa usa ka tawo, no, ang dignidad sa usa ka tawo, injurious siya by means of harming other people. If that particular act is not harming other people, so of course we can never judge the person as very unethical. Okay, nakuha na to, class?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I think I only have one student. Kumusta man ang uban na nakuha ra any question so far before I proceed with another slide?
Wala na, sir.
Para sir.
Yes, sir.
Good class if you do, no. Please, if you have a question, please feel free to ask question, class. Do not hesitate to ask question if you have, no. Parang you will also be enlightened, especially if you are in trouble. Naglibog ka, no. There's no sense nga maglibog, no. You have to ask question because as always, I guarantee to you nga ako gina-entertain ninyo question. I am going to answer your question. Okay? Sige. Let me proceed with the step 3. Until now, Unfortunately, wala pa open ako ang PowerPoint. I don't know. Wala ko yung clue. No, sakit pa juga yung tiyan. Sakit yung tiyan kasi unasad ni ako ang kuan ay ng acid reflux na ko puting sakita. Anyways, the show must go on, no? Sige, let me proceed with the next slide. Third step is identifying the principles that have, sa manina, atay pakita din picture sa babaw. Walay picture, okay. Third step is identifying the principles that have a bearing on the case in any moral dilemma, no? There are sure moral values or principles that are vital to the rival positions being taken. It is very significant to recognize these principles and in some cases to decide whether some principles are to be weighted more heavily than others. So mo na ang ikatulong step is identifying the principles that have a bearing on the case. Dili no usahay no kinahanglan kita nga when we are going to make decisions out of principles, di ba? Atong nakita no, universal moral principles. What is universal moral principles? Ang gibarugan ni Heinz is ang iyang prinsipyo. Despite the fact that he knows that there is a law also that is by virtue vested coming from this what we call principles. Ang law is principles man sana, no? But the question is, do the law may matawag ano does the law actually serves the majority of the people? Does the law actually serve the welfare of the majority of the people? The answer is yes. But what about those people who are actually a victim by circumstances? Dili lang ba diay sila? Palihato ni Heinz. Si Heinz, mingon lang bata nga, sayop gitong gibuhat niya. Mingon lang bata na, sayon, no? Dili kita kaingon ana because in the first place, yago ng asawa, no? Heinz already know nga kung yang i-violate ang usa ka balaod, naagin ang punishment, of course, no? There's always a corresponding punishment. But for him, he stand up with his principle that I might lose everything that I have. No, I might lose my dignity. I might lose with my morality, but I cannot afford to lose my wife, which I really love so much, which I adore so much. So bahalag mapriso ko, bahalag mag-suffer ko because nga akong asawa importante nga akong buhion. And with that, enough na no, I will be happy to see her nga naulian siya. Now, dili sa prinsipyo usahay we tend to focus usahay no di kalikayan no mag-focus ta about we will get punished no ana sa tuang but one thing is for sure no kung asa to nga prinsipyo nga mas bugat pa no mas bugat siya og kana nga mas bugat pa siya mas importante pa siya adto ta no kaysa ang atong prinsipyo nituo lagi ta but it compromises also sa tuang kaugalingon nga kagustuhan sa atong kasing-kasing di ba we also compromises with what is the best because for us kahangan ta mo follow. It's never been a wrong thing to violate a law. It's never been a wrong thing so long as ang imong gibuhat is kanang to let someone die, especially your loved one, is mas bugat yun na, no? We cannot afford to just look at them suffering, no? Slowly dying. Well, kita wa tay gibuhat, di ba? Atom nang kargo di konsensya. So mo na it's very vital, no? Even though if the two choices may be a rival from each other, magbugno, magkalibugay ang imong una because of the possible consequences. But one thing is for sure, to wait with the choices na imong timbang-timbangon and which among them is much heavier to you, which among all of them is much shall we say favorable for you adto ta no adto mo to pilion pero dili gyapon no we have to naalang gyapon siya kuan pod napod siya nagyapon siya kaning gitawag nato considerations. Set to it that particular choices is actually made by means of a rational thinking. Kaya na may uban maghimog choice nga nila as ato pa dai sir, pwede ra dai mi magsupak-supak. Dili po, that is an exemption of rational nga klase nga choice, rational nga klase nga principle, rational nga klase nga choice. You are going to choose with what is more rational, what is a kind of choice that could only produce a minimal damage, or else much better if that particular choice that you have chosen would not cause any damages to you or to the other people. Okay? So importante kayo no. Amo na no, diha kuan din no, matuhop din, mosunod din ang gitawag nitong alternatives. So fourth step is listing the alternatives. So di ba when we make choices, we have always an alternative. Mesela plan A, plan B, plan C. Even gani karon din sa ato ang presidential race. Di ba? We have a lot of choices. And as much as possible, everybody are actually encouraged no when you're going to plan for a solution of a problem, mas nindot jud nga natay daghan nga italaga nga mga choices. Why? The more you have choices, the more you can actually think what is more effective, what is more kining pinaka importante, pinakabugat, di ba? This step involves coming up with the various alternative courses of action as part of the creative thinking included in resolving a moral dilemma. So diha pinaagi niya na, of course, at least daghang kag choice. So you are going to apply what ifs. What if I am going this one? What if I am going this one? So at least you can figure out which among them, which would weigh a minimal damage. Okay? A minimal damage, or as much as possible, a minimal problem. Kaysa ka nang magbuhat kag usa ka butang nga dako na nung kay problema. Though there will be some alternatives which you will rule out without much thought, in general, the more alternatives that are listed, the better the chance that your list will include some high-quality ones. No? So, na-adyo kay maapil ang pinaka-epektibo. Also, you may come up with some very creative alternatives that you had not considered before. Usay no, ma-surprise ka, mingon ka na, actually, it was not part of my plan, but I just included this one, and yes, definitely, I get succeed with the kind of plan that I have, which I do not expect a lot, no? Nga makuan din siya, no? Nga makahatag din siya kaayuhan. Now, there, you can see the person, no? Napahak na lang iyang, himo siya choices, no? Which among this, card or money? But anyway, that is just a picture. Dire, ningon this fifth. Is comparing the alternatives with the principles. So, sa fifth day, you're going to compare the alternatives with the principles. What is that principles? Of course, the universal moral principles, the principles of law, or unsa pa nga principles, no? This step involves eliminating alternatives according to the moral principles that have a bearing on the case. So, dire, mingingon ta, no? In choosing principles, of course, it is very much appealing. It is very much important nga when you come up to when you come up to decide, no, nga asa dapitang choice ng imong pilion, you are going to eliminate. Naputay gitawag elimination process. Kaya di lang pwede no nga naghimo ka ni imong choice balik tulo. No? Dili pwede ang imong choice balik tulo. Mura ni siya og kuan kanang mura sa siya relationship, no? Ang relationship duha ka buk imnibgan, di man na pwede mo panguyaban ang duha. Kay imbis 1 plus 2 equals 3, 1 plus 2 equals 0. Wala na hinay mabilin. Kay may balaan ka, nga imo lang gilumpong sa duha, wag ting tanan, no? So inana po ng himog choice, aron dili libog ang imong choice. Of course, it is very important nga you have to make a very decisive nga decision, no? You're going to think it twice, and at the same time, you are going to examine each consequences of your alternatives. And with that, you have the idea what choices has to be eliminated, because that particular choices seems to be kanang injurious kaya, no? Nana. So in many cases, the case will be resolved at this point, since the principles will remove all alternatives except one. So the purpose of this comparison is to determine is not forthcoming. Then the next step in the model should be considered. So some of the alternatives at the list may be rejected by the step of comparison. So di ano, you are going to reject. You are going to, I'm sorry, no, you have to compare. You're going to compare and then reject those alternatives which you think is not effective. So there you can see the pros and the cons, the positive and the negative. So let's proceed with the next step. Is weighing the consequence. You're going to weigh the consequence. Imo na timang-timangon nga unsa kay mga possible, no? Kung malitan ako ning buhaton, bisig kulatahon ko. Pero ug di po nila ko buhaton, sikuan pod malain. If the principles do not produce a clear decision, then a consideration of the consequence of the remaining available alternatives is in order. So both positive and negative consequences are to be considered. So mingon ka asa kay ani nga buhaton ako, no, nga kana nga makahatag og dako kay kayuhan. They should be informally weighted since some positive consequences are more beneficial than others. So nagi mga positive nga consequences no nga kanang mas makahatag og ayuhan kumpara sa uban. And there are also some negative consequences that would actually brought more problems or kanang detrimental than others. So nagi mga negative consequences nga mas malala pagid kumpara sa kang naiban nga maka-cause og minimal nga mga negativity, no? So na mga inana. Like for example, you have a boyfriend. Ang imong boyfriend is naggumon og illegal nga drugas, naninda og drugas. Now, giingnan ka sa imong uyab, no, nasakpan nimo iyang bag pagtan-aw nimo na ay sulod siya book. Kanang giingnan nya kuha na mo 8 years na mo nga uyab dugay na kay mo sig all together, no? Sige na mo kuyog all together. Now, giingnan kasi mong uyab nga gibantaan ka, no? Gibantaan ka, giingnan ka biyae ko kay biyaan gi ko nimo patyon ti ka kay larbo ko sa imong pamilya, ako sa ipapatay imong pamilya. No? Kung nya dili nimo siya biyaan, nakasinati pug ka nga pirmi pug kanya kulatahon. Na siya sadistic nga behavior. Pirmi kanya kulatahon nya luoy kay kastanan himo kanyang sulugon mura ra gyud tan-aw nimo mura kay patit-patiran ka, sumbagon ka. Now, if I were you, be pangutan-on ta mo class. If I were you, unsa may pinakaangayan ninyong buhaton kaha? Example ra na, no? Kana. Example, sige ari ko be mangutana ko ni Miss Glidel Villos. Miss Glidel, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
Okay. So, have you heard the particular situation that I mentioned a while ago?
Pwede balik slide, sir, kay hinay ako internet.
Okay. Ang situation is like this, no? Since we're talking about the kaning moral reasoning model, ingani ang situation, Miss Glidel, ang imuha nga example lang ha? Example lang ni. Nakay uyab, no? 8 years na. 8 years na imong uyab niya. Usay manakit ang imong uyab nimo pero kabalo ka no nga love kay nimo siya. Perti gyud imong laban niya, in love kay kaniya. Kay for 8 years na agwanta man nimo. Now, there comes to the situation nga nangukay ka sa iyang bag kay murag nakuan ka no, you get tempted with what is actually inside the bag kay tungod bundo siya. Pagtan-aw nimo ang sud shabu. Now, nakit-an po ka na sud shabu na po sud armas. Now, nakit-an ka sa imong uyab na caught in the act juga nga nangukay ka sa iyang bag. Now, ang giingon sa imong uyab, giingon siya nga sige, musaba kay kag lain, musaba kay kag otoridad, patyon ti ka. Gingnan ka. Nya murag ni action ka og sukol. Ningon ka, balagi mo kung patyon siya, hasta imong pamilya ako pong patyon. Kung musaba ka. Nya di naka-decide ka nga biyaan, ningon pud imong uyab nga sige, biyaan ko nimo. Tinablahay ta ani. Now, if you were in that particular situation, what will you do if ikaw may kanang babae?
First,
Para
moadto sa attorney, then namang yung mga kaila, magpatabang, then adto sa police, i-report, then of course, safe daan ang whole family. Then ipapriso jud siya.
Okay? What a very good kayo nga kuan no, you're mature gid no, miss. So ang uban no, wala man ang uban pud taon mablangko no, ilang una na tay lisuday patyon ko. No? Sige. Thank you so much Miss Glidel. Okay. Sige. So what if atong balihon, arita tas lalaki no, ang iyong kuya babae moy ingon ana no na illegal nga binuhatan. Sige. Arita ni Mr. Alvin J. Lapinig. Mr. Lapinig, so what if you can actually experience that kind of situation? Natay butang ang babae mo gibuhat ngingon ana nya ang dugay na mo nagkarelasyon. What will you do?
Kapriso diretso sir.
Kapriso nimo ditso?
Oo, pwede mo duwa.
Ingom siya nga patyon kaniya og ang imong pamilya basta mutug-an ka. Kay daghan sa siya kapit.
Siyempre sir, ano. Sorry sir.
Sige na, okay ra.
Sorry sir. Siyempre ano, report sa ano sa police or sa inyong barangay. Like di ka pahalata.
Airport sa
Hello? Sorry sir.
yes. Yes. Yes, you can continue.
Sir, ano, report sa siya sir sa ano, pwede sa barangay or police station, pero ano, dili ko pahalata like nga na.
Dili ka pahalata.
Kaya ano sir, ano,
Unya kan
safety first ba sir?
Unya kay nibal-an man niya nga wa gyud siya laing wala man gyud siya lain nga kadudahan kay karon ginakita niya. Do you think okay ka nga nagbantang siya nga yung pamilyahan nga ano?
Siyempre sir, ano, kwanda yun ang pahibalon.
Paibayan mo yung family.
Para awareness sila ba?
So that they can, okay? That's a very good also, a very good plan also, no? Paibalon, so that somehow they can actually ask for security, no? Sa ilahang kinabuhi. And then that's the time no nga madto kag balaod. Okay? That's a very good also nga plan. So inana no? Na mga alternatives natay mga best plan nga pwede kayo no. That's the reason why this will serve as a guide to everybody kaning 7 steps in the moral reasoning model, so that somehow you will be guided with what to do, no? And what are the particular nga mga choices nga pwede ninyo tangtangon, especially those choices that are irrelevant and those choices that could actually produce very damaging kayo nga result. Okay? So, let's proceed no with number 7. The last but not the least step is making a decision. Dire no? Since deliberation ought not to go on forever, a decision must be made at some point. Dili man no, when we can actually encounter problems, dili man na siya maghatag og kuano kana ba nga dako kay panahon no, di man na siya forever. Kuano na siya no, when we are asked to actually make plans or make a decisions, usahay nam gani usahay no deliberately, gitawag sig deliberately, usahay automatic dayon no nga makinahanglan di siya sa ato ang decision. So with that, kailangan po mo decide now what to do, because since we're here in the last step, it must be realized that the one common element of moral dilemmas is that there are no easy and painless solutions to them. So sa pagkatinuod, of course kaning ato ang sometimes no usay ang kaning ato ang pag deal with some particular problem is di mo jud kalikayano nga we can lose something, no? Usay magasto atong panahon, magasto atong oras, usay masakitan ta, no? But that's normal because you know at some point in our life, just like for example sa katong ka Lawrence Kohlberg nga nahitabo, naam gyud tay mga consequence no nga kaya nga nato nga usay atong sungasungon, no atong atubangon. So with that, of course, since we use the step number 6, no, we're already guided, no nga katong pinaka the best mo to pilion, mo to ato nga i-apply, no, katong dili kayo injurious, at the same time dili po kayo makakause siya og dako kayo nga kadaot sa tua. Now normally the decision that is made is one that possesses the least number of problems or negative consequences, not one that is devoid of them. So ano, dili ta mamili atong mga choices no nga makahatag og dako kay kalabad right after, makahatag og dako kay problema right after, no. As always kita gid no, we will make choices nga katog yung asa ta dapita hiyang, asa ta dapita nga dili ta maalkansi, asa ta dapita nga dili ta kuan no, madaot. Mao gyud ay pinaka importante, especially in making decisions or plans. Okay? So, by the way, namin nakabutang dito, credits to the owners of all the quotations used and all media used in this blog. So, I supposed to present my own katong PowerPoint, no? But since kuan man siya, na-corrupt man, so kanina lang, no? I will send this one to you so that somehow you can study with this. So, I will be including this one sa ato nga midterm exam. Okay? Please class no, study. This is very important. And I will proceed with the next discussion. Okay? Kaning next discussion na to class murag medyo dako-dako gini siya. So don't forget class kana nga kuan 7 steps in the moral reasoning model. So next I think no, that would be that's the end of my kuan. That's the end of my presentation. Para ana nga discussion. I am going to move with another discussion, okay? Kadali. So I send that one, plus I send the link to the GC para nga mabasa to sa uban. Mabasa to ninyo. No? Okay, let me share to you my other slide, which is supposed to be mo tani mag-una, no? But gilang unfortunately kuan man na daot man ni ganiya, so kanina lang, no? Moral development in relation to every field of specialization. So mo ni siya. Now, moral development focuses on the emergence, change and understanding of morality from infancy to adulthood. So morality develops across a lifetime and is influenced by an individual's experiences and behavior when faced with moral issues through different periods, physical and cognitive development. Morality concerns as individuals' growing sense of what is right and what is wrong. It is for this reason that young children have different moral judgment and character than that of a grown adult. So morality in itself is often a synonym of rightness or goodness. It refers to a specific code of conduct that is derived from one's culture, religion, or personal philosophy that guides one's actions, behaviors, and thoughts. So muna na siya mo say nag-define sa moral development na atong tukion. No? Why is that so? That a while ago it mentions that the child, no, especially kita no, di mo kita ditso katiguang, no, mo undergo kita og developmental stages, no, from child, after a child, sunod young adult, no, middle adulthood, dayon late adulthood. Gikan sa infant, sunod child, sunod teen, ano no, sunod mo na young adult, middle adulthood, and late adulthood. So kaning stages of moral development diin man ni makuha. Now sa nagbata pa lang tadaan, since pagkabata na to class, we are actually being taught with what is morality or what morality is all about, diba? Anaon ta sa tong mama nga, dong ayaw inta pagdinaw dong kay sukong Ginoo ana. Panghatag anay mong mga makaon, bahini ang mong mga igsuon, bahini mong mga amigo-amiga, manalang katilaw sila. So with that, we can say that the very basic foundation of this what we call morality will actually started at home. Di gina sa balay magsugod plus, di gina magsugod siya somewhere else, di ba? Di gina sa balay. Now, aside from balay, asa pa gyud sa school, di ba no? Sa school, the school also plays a very vital role in providing or in actually imparting the knowledge to the child with what morality is all about, no? Kaning eskwelahan na to, di ba? Masuk ignay magsumbagay, ipada sa guidance office. It's not about to punish the student, but they brought the child to the guidance office for him to be corrected with that wrongdoing. Okay? Kanang manluwa o classmate, kasabaan ta sa maestra, no? It's because dili man gid pud maayo nga manluwa ta. Di ba? Atong luwaan ng buhok sa classmate, no? Di pud pwede, no? Manumbag sa classmate. So, diya, no? Usap pud na siya nga makatabang ang eskwelahan to help, no? They act as a second school, as a second home para sa usa ka bata while we are still in the developmental stage nga nagtubo pa tanaw nga wala pa kay ta kasabot what morality is all about. Now, next, what about religion? Of course, no, the religion is a very important also factor that helps individual strengthen and shape their view about what moral is all about, no? Kaning, di ba, natay 10 commandments. So those are the very universal. Those are very matawag na to siya no nga kuan jud kay siya no kanabang dili siya specific, very general kay siya no ang 10 commandments. Dili magpatay. So any forms or act of killing is already a violation with that deity, no? Kanang pagtudlo sa tinuan. So, of course, diyan na makatunta, dili mangawat. Any forms of pangawat, pwede mangilad ka, well, igagaw na sila, no? Mo nagingon nga ang manluloko at ang mandarambong at ang kawatan ay igagaw na sila, no? So, mo na gitudluan ta, no? The religion also becomes the fundamental to every individual about knowing what morality is all about. Now, ikaapat, society where you have grown up. No? Ang atuang palibot, ang atuang komunidad, ang atuang mga friends, atong mga silingan, inaagi diha no, diha po ta makaton unsay morality. Kaya usahay makakita ta, I experienced before, no? I have my nephew, kuyog mi padung dito sa kulon, unya nay ginag ang babae gilabnihan og bag, gidagan ang lalaki gikulata siya. There is that nephew of mine nangutana sa kuha nga kanang tito ngano daw ito gibukbuk lang ito siya ni dagan lang ito siya na ba. So I answered the child no nga kana nga siya okay ra din na bukbukon kanang mga what ano ba. I answered to him no nga actually it's wrong, no. There is the law that would actually take good care of those criminal, no. It's actually a wrong thing nga imuha nga kulatahon nimo ang usa ka tawo nga nakasala kay naman ay bugti ang ilang pagkasala. Now ang pagpangawat dili pod maayo, no, kay dili man to iyaha, dili man to iyaha na may lain nga naghago ato, and maybe ang katong bag nga iyang gidala as something valuable, no, or else mahal na isod kwarta, na isod cellphone. So mo to nga ikinahanglan gito siya nga mauli sa tag-iya kay basing gamit to. Kanang kawatan presuhon na di na siya kawato, di na siya kulatahon. So take note, no, by just seeing what is actually happening in the society, the child can actually create a bigger scope, no, where he can actually ask, and that would lead to a very complex kayo nga mga question, daghan na kayo magsanga-sanga nga mga question, by which diya po nag-develop ang iyang mental process kanang gitawag nitong cognitive development, no, ne yang way of cognition, ang iyang pagpanabot started po to develop. So that's the reason why kita no you might not actually find it very important as go kaning sa kapuyan ng ethics bullying kay nag-gikam sige istorya ng morality, mo istorya ng permit ethics, istorya ng philosophy, kapoy ra pud kay na boring po na subject ka. But you forget the fact, no, what is the very important is the values of the person rather than the intelligence, no. Giingon bitaw na intelligence without values is like saman siya. Mura po siya, mura gyapon ka og kuano, living dead. O kani atong intelligence is it's meaningless, no? Without values. I can still remember before when I was at that moment when I started to apply a job and I get hired from a very prestigious company. He told me, hey, RJ, are you the one who actually handles the or take good care of the applicants? Kanang mag-conduct og mga preliminary interview. Yes, sir. Okay, so you are a recruitment officer. So this is what I can share to you. No, gingnan ko sa manager. Ayaw dili ka magbasi sa mga kabright sa tao, no. Ayaw ka pagbasi sa kabright sa tao. We don't need mga bright nga mga tao, no. Focus more on bala nagsakto ra no, so long as they can pass the exam and focus more on the values of the person, no. Focus more on the behavior, the attitude, the values in general nga mo imong tan-awon, the way they act, the way they actually respond, the way they actually follow with your instructions the moment that you're going to conduct an entrance exam. So muna gingon sa kuha. So I always put that one in my mind nung ningon ako manager, he is one of those person whom I admire most. Kay para niya ko no, kani ko ng mga intelligent people, they are those type of people nga kana ba nga pwede ra nila no nga biyaan nilang trabaho kay tuo man sila nga kuan kay sila kana marketable kay sila, no? Kay abi intelligente sila. But they forgot the reality nga sa world of work, what is very important is kaning gitawag itong values. Ang importansya sa trabaho. Ay ang uban mo god just because bright sila, di sila magpatudlo, no? Unlike aning mga dili kayo bright, ang average lang, they are very much willing to learn. So inana usab no, gani bisan diri sa education we can encounter no, people who are actually brilliant are very hard-headed, very kuan kay no kanabang when it comes to compliant to the policy, kuan kayo kusog kayo maghimo-himog ilahang kaugalingon palisiya. Ay mo ingnon nga isubmit through Edmodo, naghimo sila isend through GC. So muna na mga inana no, sadly. But we do not condemn that kind of kuan no, kanang behavior, because what really matters most is the attitude, the values of the person, no, which is eventually would matawag na to no nga iyang product is kaning attitude and behavior. Okay? Next, the earliest theories came from philosophers. So of course everybody knows who is Confucius, no? The founder of Confucianism. Aristotle and Jean-Jacques Rousseau, no? Who took a more humanist perspective and focused on developing the conscience and sense of virtue. So in the modern day, empirical research has explored morality through a moral psychology led by theorists like Sigmund Freud, and its relation to cognitive development by theorists like Jean Piaget and Lawrence Kohlberg and Boris Frederick Skinner, or also known as B.F. Skinner, who is a founder of this what we call he is a behaviorist psychology, no, kani si Boris Frederick Skinner. No, next is Carol Gilligan and Judith Smetana. Now let's proceed. Okay, we will be discussing one of them, all of them here. No, so boss, the interest in morality spans many disciplines. Daghan kay no, we have philosophy. Sa ato ano, when we discuss about morality, what is associated with morality? Philosophy, of course, the very vital, which is the origin of morality. Next, we have economics. Of course, there's also a discipline of morality when you speak about economics. With such understanding that a human being also is an economic being. Meaning to say, di ba, we're an economic. We consume products, we buy product, we sell product, and we also plan for what is the best to actually to cope up from the systems of the way of living. Now next, biology. So of course, the with respect about life, different forms of life, we can also apply morality, no? And also political science, no? When the very nature of the human being also as a we have this what we call political self, no? We have this sense of influence. We will influence. We get influence. We communicate with people. We interrelate with people because that's the very nature of a human being. And also the specialization with psychology. Okay? So morality can also be applied in psychology by means of kaning social. Di ba? As I mentioned a while ago with association of political science, we are social being. Meaning to say, we cannot, di ba, na magingon na we cannot just live alone, no? All by ourselves. Meaning to say, we need to actually interrelate with other people, no? To appreciate life. Kaya kung mag-stay dira kasi inyong balay, so, wa mo kay makatunan. You can also learn from people, no? We can also learn from people. We can also be happy because of people, no? Uh, Cognitive and cultural. So cognitive, by means of cognitive, kaning morality lang daan, no? In terms of cognition, it is always go, no? And parallel with this what we call kaning human growth. As we grow older, of course, our understanding about morality would also develop, and also as well as this what we call culture. So cultural respects also determines with this what we call the view of morality. Just like, for example, the differences between religions. No? In order to investigate the different ways individuals understand morality, it is essential to consider their culture, beliefs, emotions, attitudes, and behaviors that contribute to their moral understanding. No? Additionally, researchers in moral development consider the role of peers and parents, conscience and values, socialization and cultural influences, empathy and altruism, and positive development to discover what factors have the most significant impacts on the development of an individual's morality. Oh, altruism is an act of selflessness. No, kaninga to ang pagkamanggihatagon, pagka manggihunahon sa mga kahimtang sa atong isig katawo. That's an act of that is an example of an altruistic act or altruism. Now, let's proceed to Freud. What is his contribution about morality? No, Sigmund Freud becomes the father of psychoanalysis, wherein according to Freud, there are the three main regions of the brain. We have the ego, the superego, and the id. Okay, the superego holds this what we call the conscience. No? So this one holds the conscience, and the ego is the state of reality. What about the id? So the id actually holds this what we call the drive, the libido, and this was actually considered as the animalistic side of the person. So if the ego actually, on the other hand, it is actually being called as the angelic side of the person because it holds the conscience. Ang kanipong ed sa tao mo po nag-hold sa kaning pagka-evil side of the person. No? We have this instinct which is actually driven with this what we call ed that enables the human person to aim with what is something that could actually gratify the flesh. Dili lang about sexuality, ha? Di lang about sexual intercourse. Dagan mag-way to satisfy the flesh, to feed food, to feed yourself with food, to drink. Dili lang drink water, kana pag-drink og beer, no, kaning mga vices, that is actually dictated from this what we call ed. Because these are the impulses, no? Kaning tao nga walay pagpuyo, ganahan masigla kaw-lakaw, laagan. That is actually controlled by ed. Because there is that neurotic behavior of a person nga murabag dili mo kapugnan imong kaugalingon ba. When you think about that one, that is driven by the ed. That is the ed is responsible for that particular action. What about kaning super ego? Kanang every time ngon ka lagot ka bantel ni sa sukmagon ko ni mingon imong super ego. No, do not do that. It's wrong. Mapriso ka. makuan ka, mapahamak ka. Ano, no? Ang ego may nag-dictate. Now, what about the ed? Of course, the ed being the middle, he will actually make decisions out of these two two other regions, no? The rest of the other regions kaning ed, super ego ed. So that's the reason why at some point we will tend to do what is good, and sometimes we kita nga ang tag-iya na ay na obviously natagat yun na kita sa babay, pero just because of the circumstances kuan lang kawaton dili na nato itugan. That is the realization of everything. Of course, the human being has to maintain balance. So there is that ego nga mag-maintain og balance between ed and superego. Because if the person cannot actually maintain the two of this kaning duha regions, kung walay ego class, maglisod ta. Di man pwede ang tao nga magbinati lang ka pirmi kay patay man ka, no? Di pud pwede ang tao magbinutan pud pirmi kay patay pud ka. Di ba? Sobrahan ka kabuutan na tao mangayo nimo, wala gani kay kwarta, tungos imong kabuutan ang luoy ko niya, ako na ning hatag akong kwarta. Ang resulta hinon, ikaw na walay kwarta. Ikaw na nag-suffer. Di ba? So that's the function of the ego. The ego will actually balance everything between the two, about which among them is the one that could actually influence the person to reach with what is the better choice. Nakuha na to, class?
Yes, sir.
I hope no you understand something with my discussion. Now, I know dili gid dayon ingon na to ma-absorb, but try your best to somehow lang no kanang familiarize, okay? Nakuha na to, class?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Class pwede ko mohangyo kadiyot lang jud kay class. Di na gid madapas kadiyot lang kay sa can you give me a little time, class? Sakit kay ang tiyan, I don't know no saan siya kadiyot lang jud kaayo. Ulit di okay.
Sir. Take time.
Okay na, sir.
Okay na, sir. Take time, sir. Okay na, sir.
Sa kadiyot lang jud kay class. Di na gid madakas ako jud utong sakit jud kay kadiyot, class. Okay, way back to my discussion. Okay, we talk about the social domain theory. Uh, Elliot Torrell argued for a social domain approach to social cognition. So delineating how individuals differentiate moral, fairness, equality, justice, societal conventions, group functionings and traditions, and psychological, personal, individual prerogative concepts from early and development throughout the lifespan. So over the past 40 years, research findings have supported this model, demonstrating how children, adolescents, and adults differentiate moral rules from conventional rules. So identify the personal domain as a non-regulated domain and evaluated multifaceted or complex situations that involve more than one domain. So kanisa nga research class is something that actually focuses on the differences about how human being actually develop this what we call moral, no? Sa ilang moral aspect. Now, this theory is kani yung nakita diri babaw ni butang fairness, equality, and justice. We know already the history, no, nga kana nga musugot tag sa dili, musugot tag sa dili, the history nga ato ang na-experience, just like for example kaning discrimination, kita no naka-experience mapuntaan na, no, nga dili lang dito sa Europe na classifications of society katong mga anak og kining hari, mga members of royal family, and kaning gitawag nila og serf or mga servant, they are actually divided, no, nay gitawag og societal distribution between the royal family ug sa kanang mga pobre. Now, diri sa tua, in terms of kaning experience, kaning fairness, equality, and justice, naka-experience po ta sa una o kaning gitawag oppression coming from sa katong mga nagkuha na to, no, nag-conquer na to, no, from shall we say mga Spaniards up to the Americans, of course, naagid. Now, coming from different people with different races, coming from the different races which actually later then no nga nagtandi sa kalahian when it comes to growing up, no, ang Amerika lain man ilahang kuan dito, no, ang ilahang culture, ang ilang mga bata dito is when we talk about kaning gitawag na tog morality, the view of morality, lain po ang ilahang kuan dito, no, lain po ang mga bata dito, because you cannot imagine at an early age ang ilang tawag, hey, what are you doing, mga bata, no, stop it, na siya, even if dako na, no, pero dili sa atua mga bata at the age of 5, 6, imuhar ng hadlokon og bunal, mahadlok ng bata, and they are not going to speak out anymore. No, unlike sa ilaha dito nga mga bata dito, they tend to challenge the way how adult actually, especially if they have found someone nga magkuano mo perform og mga actions which is very irrational kayo. So ang ilang mga bata dito is when it comes to morality, grabe na kaayo, no, grabe na ka-acknowledge sila. Nya kana nga wa ka mag-ingon nga na left behind ta. It's just so happen nga ang kaning gitawag social domain theory, when it comes to the development of morality, managlahi gud ang coming from different races. Okay? Na may like for example, napoy mga country nga naglisod, no, na may mga country nga naglisod nga like for example pareha ng Africa. So for them, para siguro sa ilaha ang ilang mga dilim sa gi-judge na to kas, no, pero most likely especially katong mga regions somewhere in the Africa, ang mga tao dito pareha ng mga Maldives, no, na yung mga tao dito nga mangupot ng mga armas at an early age, mga 13, 14, because they are also kaning nagtinguha po sila, no, by means of survival. Para nila ang kaning pagpangawat, pagpanulis is nahimo na lang nila nakagawian, because for them that's the only way that they can actually feed themselves. So muna nga managlahi gyud ang kada races, lain-lain og development when we talk about moral development. So those are being explained by the social domain theory as argued by Elliot Torrell. Okay? na dito sumanay ko ni Elliot Toler, no, nga dili pam data ko ni B.F. Skinner. Okay, B.F. Skinner, as I mentioned a while ago, he is a founder of behavioral theory. So si kani si B.F. Skinner class, another, no, a proponent of behaviorism, B.F. Skinner similarly focused on socialization as the primary force behind moral development. So meaning to say, ang kanilang gitawag na to og development of the moral development sa usa ka tawo, dako kay gi-play ang role kaning gitawag nitong pagkig-socialize. Now, this is in contrast to Freud's, wherein Freud is the notion of a struggle between internal and external forces coming from the person towards how the person actually cope up on its environment. Pero kang Boros Frederick Skinner, it focuses more on the power of the external forces, wherein gingon din no, reinforcement contingencies to shape an individual's development. Kani manggod si Boros Frederick Skinner class, sa iyang theory sa behaviorism, he believed no nga ang people learn from the consequences of their behavior. So he called that one to his experiment as operant conditioning. So meaning to say, the people will get motivated to do what is right, what is morally right. It's because they are afraid of this what we call punishment. When the moment that the person will actually perform something which is immoral or not morally right, ang tao will get punished. Okay? So ningon siya, Skinner believed that all morals were learned behaviors based on the punishment and rewards. So sa pod, the tendency for the person to actually perform such particular act which is in line to what is moral is because of the presence of this what we call rewards. No, di ba? Kabantay mo mingon imong mama nga, dong pagtarong sa imong eskwela kay suhula kay kuanan ti kag cellphone. No, kuanan ti ka kanang regaluhan ti kag cellphone. Dong basta makapasar ka sa board exam, palitan ti kag motor. So that would something that could condition the mind of the person nga maningkamot day ko, magtarong day ko eskwela, di ko maglaglaag, di ko mamarkada kay para nga makapasar kog board exam. And with that, of course, makaingon po tanong ang idea ni Boros Frederick Skinner is also correct, no? Somehow it is actually becomes significant in imparting the aspect of this what we call moral development. Okay? Is there a question so far, class?
Wala na, sir.
Okay, now I hope that is clear to everybody. Now let's proceed with John Piaget theory, no, of moral development. While both Freud and Skinner focus on the external forces that bear on morality, parents in the case of Freud and behavioral contingencies in the case of Skinner, John Piaget 1965 focused on the individual's construction or construal and interpretation of morality from a social, cognitive, and social emotional perspective. To understand adult morality, Piaget believed that it was necessary to study how morality manifests in the child's world and the factors that contribute to the emergence of central moral concepts such as welfare, justice, and rights. So, in interviewing children using the clinical interview method by John Piaget, found that young children were focused on authority mandates and that with age, children become autonomous, evaluating actions from a set of independent principles of morality. So mo na si John Piaget nag-focus siya about sa kanino the kaning pagka-parallel sa pagtubo, no, sa pagtubo sa tao by means of physical development. In parallel sad motubo sa nang kaning gitawag nato og moral development sa usa ka bata. So in the very beginning, it's not a surprise that the child cannot actually figure out what is right and what is wrong, not unless there is that someone who exercises an authority and took mandates for them to be able to follow. Just like, for example, of course, what is, as I mentioned a while ago, what is the fundamental, who are those people nga responsable para mutudlo og unsay maayo ug unsay sayop sa mga bata, kundi ang kaning mga adult, ang mga ginikanan, ang mga kuya ug mga ate. Hoy, dudong, ayaw anak, sukur bas mama, binastos man na. Hoy, dudong, ayaw panguan, ayaw pagdinaw, kay bad na. O, di ba? Masuko si God, anak. So, that is coming from the mandates of someone else nga mas maguwang pa niya. And with that, nanay an idea ang bata that the world are actually governed with this what we call rule. Natay rule. We also have on the later part when that particular child grows up, and that's the time that he becomes autonomous, meaning to say he becomes independent anymore. He will not rely on someone else's mandates, but instead he will tend to focus and realize what is actually the essence of this society. Why is that so? That I am surrounded with rules. What is actually the purpose of having rules, having the law, no, as the basis on how the human being ought to act. So ingon ana no, pag inigdako na sa katawo, that's nanamoy saktong sa labtanan, that's the time nga makasabot day mo nga nganong di man pwede luwaan akong isig katawo. Nganong dili man pwede nga kana nga magbinastos. O no? Nana kay kaugalingon nga understanding based on that, based on sa various aspect na dili coming from the parent, various aspect, meaning to say the society, the religion, as I mentioned a while ago, this coming from the school. So of course, those are the very fundamentals kayo nga mga components that would affect the development of the child's morality, no, as he grows up. Okay, I think any question, class, so far, or objection, or any additional idea if you have. Nasabtan na, class?
Nasabtan na, sir.
Okay, no?
Yes,
So,
sir.
okay. What about the others, kaning mga girls? So far, is there any question? Mga miss, before I proceed with the next slide?
Wala na, sir.
Okay. So, good. No? Okay. Thank you. So, let me proceed with Lawrence Kohlberg. We know already about Lawrence Kohlberg, no? Since we discussed that one a while ago. So, proposed a highly influential theory of moral development, which was inspired by the works of Jean Piaget and John Dewey. No, these are the humanistic psychologists kanisila. Now, humanistic psychology that is central or focuses more on the developmental as a parallel kanibang this is a very very parallel kayo at the same time very kayo dako kayo basihan for you to say that when the person actually grows up by means of physical development, ang kanipong kuano kanipong atuang ability to understand about what is right and wrong will also follow and will also be developed. So Kohlberg was able to demonstrate through research that humans improve their moral reasoning in 6 specific steps. So the stages, which fall into categories of pre-conventional, which is punishment and avoidance and self-interest; conventional, which is social norms and authority figures; and we have post-conventional, which is universal principle. So progress from child and throughout adult life. So of course, as we grow older, no, magka-grabe po ang atuang sense of idea about what morality is all about, and even applying principles on them. Okay, I'm sorry. Kohlberg was more interested in the reasoning behind a person's answer to a moral dilemma more than the given answer itself. So diha no, ang pag-answer, ang paghubad ni Lawrence Kohlberg about how human being shall say aim to understand deeper about sa every stages, diya makita na to no nga kana nga tinuod man pud no, sakto man pud ang theory ni Kohlberg, no. At some point in our life we will be put into a test on how to deal with and what kind of principle we have to follow in order to shall we say ato ang mahatagag katumanan, ato ang matimbang-timbang kung unsa gyud mas bugat no nga maka result aning gitawag nato og moral development. So we will be put into a test how we make decisions. We will be put into a test how we are going to think, which is something that could actually lead into a very minimal kayo nga problem. Okay? Next, we have number 9, amo ning social domain theory, no, as I mentioned a while ago, and of course the religion. So the role of religion and culture may influence a child's moral development and sense of moral identity. So diha values are transmitted through religion, which is for many inextricably linked to cultural identity. So kaning religion also plays a important role to actually ma-link gid siya no sa kaning gitawag nato cultural identity, because we're not sharing the same opinions. We're not sharing the same deities, which is pareha sa kanang kita mo kaon tag baboy, mga Muslim di mo kaon og baboy. So and also to the other religion. Religious development often goes along with the moral development of the children as it shapes the child's concepts of right and wrong. So intrinsic aspect of religion may have a positive impact on the internalization and the symbolism of moral identity. So no, dako kay siya makatabang, especially during the time nga bata pa ta, nga gimold na kada ano nga gimold ka sa imong ginikanan nga adunay kahadlok sa Dios, gimold ka that at often times you are going also to study and reflect from the word of God, which is coming from the Bible, so as to by the time that you have grown up, so dako na ka no, mas lapad na imong panabtanan about unsay sakto ug unsay sayop, and then you already have the idea no nga kani di ay gipang sulat sa Bible, kani di ay ang morality is very important in order for the person to actually attain this what we call ultimate happiness or eudaimonia according to Aristotle. So the child may internalize their parents' morals if a religion of a religion or a family activity of the religious social groups morals to which the child belongs. So muna no, kung asa ka nabilong, saksi ni Jehova ba ka, Romano Katoliko ba ka, Iglesia ni Cristo, Bible Baptist, ang imo pong pagtubo, ang imo pong way of living sa imong day-to-day nga pagkinabuhi, mahiuyon pod, no? Na may mga ginikanan nga kana mag-study sila, they put that one as a requirement, no? They practice that one as a requirement every day to actually read the Bible, so that somehow they will be guided and matisok gid sa ilahang kasing-kasing ug hunahuna ang unsay sakto ug unsay giya sa ilang pagkinabuhi sa matag adlaw for them nga maduol sila no to build intimate relationship with God, because that's the only way no nga maka-build up taw good relationship with God. Kay kaning word of God, di ba? Ang Dios sama ra po na siya amigo. No nga kung ang imong amigo maghatag og maayong pagtambag sa imuha, nya imo nang dawaton, of course you will be your relationship will grow up. Now if natay amigo but dili ka kabaw maminaw sa imong amigo, nahugra ang iyang hunahunaan nga mura na siya design sa imong kinabuhi. So ingon ana usab ang katuyuan sa Dios. Now for us to know him better, for us to be able to build an intimate relationship with him, so that's the way, that's one way that we can build good relationship to him, to know what is his kaning mga kuano, yung mga word of wisdom for us to be guided in our day-to-day nga pagkinabuhi. Now, Nossi and Terrell in 1993, on the other hand, proposed that the development of morality is distinct from the understanding of religious rules when assessing individuals' reactions to whether moral and non-moral religious rules was contingent on God's word and whether a harmful act could be justified as morally correct based on God's commandments. According to Nossi and Terrell, tinuod no, dako kayo og giambag ang kaning sa religion no, kay diya na makita nimo so far naghimo sila og experiment, it's not experiment, sorry, naghimo sila og survey coming from their research, and then ilang gitandi no that if that particular non-moral nga mga binuhatan giuyunan ba sa religion, but as what they can see based on the results sa ilaha nga research, dili man uyon no, wala man hay uyon sa kasuguan sa Dios. So maybe the God actually perfectly created this what we call kuano kaniba nga katuyuan nga para ang mga tao they will be guided sa ilang pagkinabuhi sa matag adlaw. Now children form their understanding of how they see the world, themselves or others, and can understand that not all religious rules are applied to morality. So yeah no, with that ang bata, they can actually have an idea nga dili tanan nga relihiyon no nag-apply aning gitawag og morality. Like for example, pareha na no ang kalahian sa Muslim o Kristiyano, mao gyud pinaka basic na to nga may example no, because I as per kuan wala man kay ko kakuan aning uban nga mga religion, but sa China no gi-allow sa ilaha ang pagkasal o kanang coming from own kind, coming from the same origin, parehang apelyido, because their purpose is para dili mapasa ang mana sa lain nga tao. So magtutuyok ra sa ilang kamot, which is dili wala pud giuyunan sa uban, no? Wala pud na siya giuyunan sa uban. So with that, makaingon gyud tano nga managlahi. Even the child, if you have actually taught or teach to your child at an early age nga mo ni siya mga kalahian, mo ni siya kalahian, but that doesn't mean nga lahi ta, we can say that we are more shall we say mingon tano nga mas tinuod ning atua or mas kuan tano, because here we're encouraging that the children would look up this what we call fairness and justice. No, kay kung imong bata imong tudluan nga sayop man nilang tinuan nila tinuhuan ay tuuan na ay mo kuan na you're also judging another culture. You're also judging another people. So munang it's not good also to infuse that kind of teaching sa imong mga bata, because with that they can also exercise and they can also realize that discrimination is okay so long as it is relating to a religious competition. Nahug na siya competition na Hinuon no. So mo na nga it's not good. Gani no it's not good to argue with other. I do not know why people are actually, but one thing is very certain. Ang mga saksi ni Hubad di man makiglalis. No? I'm not saying that I am putting favor to Jehovah's Witness ha kay ako lang based on kuan lang ako ba, based on observation, ang mga Jehovah's Witness dili man sila makiglalis about kanang mga challenge sa mga other religion. I do not know sa uban pod no if they also have that, but as per knowledge nako dili gid sila makiglalis pod no. I do not know sa uban because I also encounter, not to mention religion, not to mention the other denominations of the Catholic, but as per observation nako they tend to argue, bro. Ang kaning kuan usa nga na kuan dili mo argue kana sila no. So it's good to know also about that one. Kay kaning kung religion class di man kita pwede man mo makig-argue nga i-put into a test nga it's nice to actually show compassion sa imuhang isikataw despite the fact nga natay mga kalahian, and that kalahian is kinahanglan po nato na siya no irespeto kay kuan man kana nga nagkinabuhi man ta sa matag adlaw niya ilaha man po ng kaugalingon nga pagtuo, di ba? So ingon ana lang. So I think that's the end of my presentation. Do you have a question, class, so far? I would love to entertain questions if you have. No? If you have a question, please feel free to ask question, class, if naamang gani. Naa, class?
Wala ra, sir.
Wala ra, sir.
What about the others?
Wala ra, sir.
Nasabtan na nato, class? Nasabtan ra ba?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You know, kung mao, tempa. Class, magpahibaw lang ko ninyo daan ka sa maghatag ko og gamay kaayo nga gamay lang na activity no, just like the kind of activity that I usually send to everybody. Now, this is the last activity for the midterm, and then by next week, of course, midterm naman ginato, class, no? By next week, pahibalo lang ko, class, I will be downloading my exam, no? Sa sayo nga bahin, so that those people nga ganahan mo kuan, ganahan sila nga mo singa ani, ganahan sila nga mo kuan ba mo take sa exam sa sayo nga bahin, kay para nga dili na sila mahasol ilang utok, pwede pod no. Siguro mga Monday, by Monday I am going to upload the exam. Same lang gyapon no, it is an unsupervised exam to the Edmodo, and so that somehow I can make adjustment if there are mga problems nga ma-encounter relating to signal anak, no? Still I can help, no? As early as possible. Kaya kung i-schedule na ako siya Saturday class, unya pananglitan o Saturday niya, we are only given 3 days, no, para nga makasubmit sa moang grado to finalize everything. So that somehow makakuan pa ko ninyo class, maka-assess pa ko ninyo. Okay, kay mag-check pa ko sa mga paper, and at the same time also I will also be preparing sa amo ang mga deliverables nga daghan kayo TUS kanitanan. Okay? So I hope no nasabtan lang sa tanan. Don't worry because I will also be giving to you no the what is this? My discussion, no? Kani ako ang discussion, I will be giving to you the PowerPoint presentation and at the same time a video so that you can revisit somehow, no? Yan katong mga wala ka-appeal, makakuan lang gyapon sila, no? Maka-watch lang gyapon siya sa discussion na to dinhi sa video.